people joining us in the US as well in the middle of the night. So thank you very much for that. My name is Andrew Rogel, and I am the leader of Tech Emerging Europe Advocates. Tech Emerging Europe Advocates is run by Emerging Europe. Emerging Europe is a news, community, and intelligence organization based here in London, and we cover 23 countries of Central and Eastern Europe. Tech Emerging Europe Advocates is slightly broader. This community covers 25 countries based in Central and Eastern Europe and also Central Asia. When we look at the region, we obviously see that the region has been developing in a very fast way. There's a lot of innovation coming from the region. There's a lot of creativity coming from the region. But at the same time, despite this solid growth rates, the region still has a couple of challenges that it is facing, especially when it comes to the economic agenda. And one of them is the fact that the region relies on labor-intensive production. And I want to give you an example here. If you look at the Czech Republic or Czechia, the automotive sector is responsible for 10% of the country's GDP and also 20% of the country's exports. And recently, the semiconductor shortage has resulted in the fact that the biggest car manufacturer in Czechia, and this is Škoda, which is owned by Volkswagen, is going to produce 250,000 cars less because of that shortage. So that shows that manufacturing and labor-intensive sectors have such an impact on the economy. The only way going forward is to rely on innovation, entrepreneurship, and sustainability. So things like decarbonization, digitalization are definitely ways going forward. And Emerging Europe, Tech Emerging Europe Advocates, our community of tech entrepreneurs, leaders, experts, and investors who are eager to create a tech hub in Central and Eastern Europe, the organization triggers discussion about the future of the region. A few months ago, in September, we organized an event called "The Future of Sustainability of the Future of Emerging Europe," the future of sustainability in Emerging Europe. If you are interested in the topic, feel free to download the latest report, which is called "The Future of Sustainability in Emerging Europe." You will find out more about what the region has already done in that area. Speaking about reports, in the next couple of weeks, right after the new year, we're going to release the second edition of another report, which is called "The Future of IT in Emerging Europe," and you will have a full understanding of what is happening in the sector across the region. But I said that the organization triggers discussion about the future of the region, and today we are also talking about, we're going to talk about sustainability, we're going to talk about entrepreneurship, and we have prepared an interesting agenda for today. We're going to look at the startup ecosystem in Central and Eastern Europe. In order to do that, we've invited the Managing Partner of Alfabeat, which is a venture and capital organization. We will also look at the macroeconomic situation, and we will be joined by the CEO of the Warsaw Stock Exchange Tech. We will later look at a number of startups coming from Central and Eastern Europe. We've prepared an early startup innovation showcase. We've invited 5 startups to join us today. And we're later going to look at how the most recent developments here in the UK, especially in Glasgow, and I'm talking about Six, how that can help us drive more cooperation between the United Kingdom and Central and Eastern Europe. So without further ado, I would like to invite my first guest. This is going to be Bartosz Lipnicki, who's already with us. Bartosz, can you hear us?
Hi, Andrew. How are everyone?
Awesome. I think we need to turn up the volume a little bit so I can hear Bartosz better. So ready to start, right?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. We just need to turn up the volume on our end a little bit so I can hear you a little bit better. So if we look at the startup ecosystem in Central and Eastern Europe, we're talking about tech companies in the region being now valued almost 190 billion euros. We're talking about an increase of, a 19-fold increase compared to the end of the last decade. And also, we're talking about startups raising over 4 billion euros in venture capital funding. I wanted to start with a question, a very overall question. How you see the startup ecosystem as the managing partner at Alpha?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Andrew, and great having you and being here with you. I would typically be in Shoreditch every month, but these times I can join you online. And I primarily look at the ecosystem and at the region from the perspective of a venture capital investor, seed and early stage, and primarily looking at enterprise software companies going global, however, coming from the emerging region of Central Eastern Europe, right? And definitely the ecosystem and the region is booming. Yeah, it's like it's never been before. And there are certain factors that make it happen, I believe. And primarily it is the engineering talent pool. So probably every global tech company already has a service, IT, and R&D center in the region across the Baltics, Poland, Czech Republic, Romania, and more. And that's the the base ground for creating a tech ecosystem. And what's very interesting, we could see it at a recent report by Atomico, Dealroom, and Google for startups, is that 31% of the unicorns coming from the region have been bootstrapped, compared to just 7% in the rest of the world. This is incredible. And following on that on HackerRank's list, software engineers from the region rank top. So in top 10 countries, 3 are in the region of Central Eastern Europe, and even more of the countries and of the software engineers from the region rank as they never give up, right? So if you combine those, it's a fantastic engineering talent pool. Global companies invest there already. You have fantastic software engineers who never give up. Yeah, this is definitely a starting point to build a fantastic tech ecosystem.
So if you look at the region, it's not only countries like Poland, it's not only countries like Ukraine, which are the biggest countries in the region, but there's also the Baltic states, like you mentioned, and there's a huge group of countries in the southern or southeastern part of the region. How do you see the whole map and the startup ecosystem in across the entire region, not only the biggest countries?
Right. I think that the recent year has changed a lot and has given us a fantastic opportunity. So the region, as you mentioned, Andrew, is 20 or more countries that you cover. Yes, it's super fragmented. It's a lot of relatively small countries, and it's the moment in time like never where we can actually, being anywhere, connect online and do our job. It's not as we meet in person, but it's actually happening, and it's more possible than it's ever been. So I think this is one of the great opportunities, is the very fragmented region of relatively small countries is able to connect now, and we see many similarities across the region. Like it's an emerging region, like it's fantastic engineering talent pool having a lot of global investments in R&D, and like we have people and founders, entrepreneurs driven to start a tech business and to prove the world they can do it.
But if you look at our region, it seems that every single country always looks towards the West. And in fact, if you look at the potential of the region, we're talking, when I look at the 25 countries that Technology Europe Africa cover, we're talking about 300 million people. That's an enormous population altogether. Yet, it seems that we tend to look West instead of actually utilizing the potential that is within the region. And it seems that we don't collaborate enough within the region. What's your take on that?
Maybe, yes. So I have to admit, I look probably bottom up and at only a part of the region. However, as I said, it's both the online presence that now is an opportunity to work together more. It's also that primarily the region being rich in engineering talent pool is great in starting tech companies. However, it's also, to me, understandable that those companies and those founders primarily start where they're from, but they actually target large software markets or large global markets. Yeah, so it's natural that they go towards Western larger countries, towards the US or towards Asian markets, because just those are larger markets. So those markets offer just more consumers, more enterprise businesses. So I would understand that. Now, what's very positive, and in the previously mentioned report also showcased, is that most of the tech companies starting up in the region actually stay in the region, and they may move their sales and business development, and some of the founders may relocate to target larger direct markets. However, still their R&D, IT, typically operations, stay in the region, and that's very positive trend as well.
Yeah, before we started this session, we actually had a discussion here that there are plenty of unicorns within, or coming from Central and Eastern Europe, but they're actually now based elsewhere. And we can take Grammarly as an example. We can take UiPath as another example. Do you think there is something we can do to make sure that these companies end up staying in Central and Eastern Europe as opposed to actually changing their headquarters and moving them over to, let's say, the US or here to London?
Right. Yeah, it's true that many of those companies relocate. However, still majority keep their tech here in the region. And I think one of the reasons they move, besides tapping at a large direct market, is access to capital. And this is still a lot to do. So the whole region of Central Eastern Europe, including Southern Eastern, has several times less capital than a single market of Germany or the UK. So that's definitely something to be improved, and that could also motivate more of those tech companies to stay in the region. where their also capital is from, where their supporters are, still tapping on larger direct markets, however, keeping more of the company locally here in the region.
Do you think that the region should somehow focus on a specific vertical, for example, or a specific focus on specific areas that could be, the region's specialty?
Right. I'm a bit bullish on enterprise software because that's primarily our focus, and that's an interesting segment because 1/3 of venture capital investments, venture capital going to startups in the region is actually in enterprise software. And I understand that because of the investments in R&D, because of the engineering talent pool and greatly skilled software engineers. However, so this is definitely number one, very strong, also strengthened by definitely UiPath, but also many other companies, ICI, Informatica, and so on. Other segments pretty strong have been gaming, food, also transportation. So there are a few segments that we actually outperform in and against other regions in Europe, and I think it's smart to start building on that.
And how do you see sustainability in all of that? I mean, this particular session or this event is focused on building sustainability capabilities, if you will, and drawing people's attention to the future. So how do you see that aspect being developed or looked at by startups in Central and Eastern Europe?
Yeah. So this is to me extremely important. And I would start with looking at sustainability as looking at physical and mental health of the startup founders, because those are people who have typically skin in the game, who commit 100% or more to their business, and not like typical, executives or even athletes. They don't have that level of support. Many of the startup founders are on their own, and definitely sustainability here is extremely important to keep on starting up, growing, and scaling up the company globally. This is super important, and definitely that's a challenge, especially being an emerging region and having this motivation to prove we can do it and we can conquer the world. And I think one of the solutions would be actually to democratize more access to venture capital. So I sit in Warsaw, Poland now, and however, I know that some of the countries across the region don't have that relatively good access to venture capital or that number of venture capital funds around them. And that can be a challenge. So democratizing access to VC also increases competition between the VCs, and certain important matters like sustainability or mental physical health of the founders become more and more important because there are certain VC players who take care of that.
So what do you see as the next sort of big thing coming from Central and Eastern Europe?
That's a good question. That's the question I'm asking myself every day. It's what's the next big thing, and definitely to me is a lot based on enterprise software. Also because some of the founders from the region built fantastic companies in the US, like PayPal, Databricks, Snowflakes, or UiPath, and that paves the path and motivates people. But definitely there's a lot going on in a in decentralization. A lot built on blockchain technologies, and we have several companies from the region really strong and emerging in that segment. There's also a lot going on in like decentralized energy. So I mean like decentralized virtual solar power plant. It's actually one of the companies we've invested in recently, and on top of that network of decentralized points of solar energy, they're building enterprise software to actually manage that process. So such companies definitely maybe the next big thing, and they are starting up in the region, which is great, of course.
The final word, any advice to startup founders, to look at or to consider things that will be important in the future?
I think primarily it is so important to build on your experience, competence, and on market challenges and opportunities. That's primarily, I would say, the most important, because that's your strength, right? In the same time, is quite important to watch those mega trends, like even metaverse, or other words, Internet of 3D, in simple words, or decentralized world. You don't have to connect there if your business model or your company doesn't connect primarily, but keep it in mind, because it's happening faster than actually ever.
Bartek, thank you very much for joining us today, and hopefully see you in Warsaw or in London next time.
Thanks, Andrew. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the event.